Hey, what's up, guys? What's up, Howard? Welcome back. Welcome back. Dr. Jaws here, and tonight we are meeting the Borneo River Shark, Glyphis fowlerae. Now, this is going to be really interesting because this species may have very recently been reclassified. And there's some research that we'll take a look at tonight. I think there is some debate on the taxonomy of the river sharks, where are they? They're last time I checked, there was like 5 different species, but this may have been reorganized into just three. Now, what's interesting is that IUCN Red List is even showing just three on the website, which I'm pretty sure they used to have five. So I'm excited to dive into this more in detail and kind of learn more about what either this is a its own species, and it's listed in the species in like the sharks of the world. So I feel like it should be its own thing. It's on Fishbase as well as Glyphis fowlerae. But I'm excited to see if that's recently changed, and that would be one of the very rare instances of, I guess, reversing a taxonomic decision, lumping two species together. So, hey Sam, welcome back. Good evening to you too. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope you had a good weekend too, Howard. Let me know if you guys did anything in particular. Hey Bibia, welcome back. Welcome back. Hope you had a good weekend as well. So, mine was pretty chill. So I don't really have much to share. It's just it was one of those good like down weekends. Just kind of like not necessarily doing a lot because I usually like I'm kind of on the go for the most part. So it's like it was nice to kind of just like relax and chill out last weekend. So. But I think with that, let's dive in. So let's meet river sharks in general. There are a few clips of them, starting with some Australian river sharks. So we'll take a look at a river shark survey, and I think this is the classic Glyphis glyphis. What's cool about river sharks is that a lot of people still don't know about them very well, and a lot of people don't realize that they are freshwater sharks. And it's not just this is a great example one right here, beautiful species. So it's not just bull sharks that can enter freshwater; it's also river sharks. So river sharks are all found in the Pacific, specifically the Indo-Pacific. They are actually arguably more of a better adapted to freshwater than bull sharks, or arguably like spend more time. I shouldn't say better adapted because bull sharks are incredibly adapted, but like they spend more time arguably in freshwater than bull sharks, and so you can kind of look at these as like true riverine sharks, if you will. They also have a range of salinities, but bull sharks can kind of cover everything. Like bull sharks are on the coast, bull sharks are in rivers, lagoons, lakes, and then the river sharks are kind of more of a smaller, more restricted habitat, and they're more focused on the rivers, which is really exciting. So it's really cool to see a shark that spends a lot of its time in a freshwater riverine habitat. Especially since there are quite a few freshwater rays. So freshwater rays are a little bit more famous, especially like the Amazonian rays. But the river sharks, they're not as well known, so it's really cool to take a look at them. They are a distant cousin of bull sharks. I believe they're in the same family, Carcharodontidae, but they are a different genus, which is Glyphis. And there's a couple interesting features about them. One being that they do have two large dorsal fins, and they're fairly equal size. And one thing that's interesting about the dorsal fins is that they're kind of like they're not like the classic shark fin. They're a little bit wider. And the trailing edge of the dorsal fin is actually kind of like out at an angle a little bit. So it's kind of an interesting shape that's a little bit uncommon in shark world. I'm not really sure why their fins are like that, but tonight I'm making a late night latte, which probably is a bad idea. I shouldn't have coffee this late, but I know Bibia is probably enjoying a cup of coffee, so I hope you have a good one all set. So I'm having one too, and it's 9 p.m. in Eastern North America, so we'll see how that goes. But here's a great clip. Oh, this is by Cairns Marine, which I should subscribe. I don't know why I've never subscribed to them before, because they have some of the rarest footage on river sharks. So this is the sphere tooth shark, Glyphis glyphis. This is kind of like the classic river shark species. and a just kind of like a small. This tank reminds me of a tank that the Virginia Institute of Marine Science used to have on the Eastern Shore. They were doing a shark study, and they had a bunch of dusky sharks in that tank. So it's kind of like your classic like pool, like above ground pool. But this is a great showcase of these animals and kind of what they look like, and you can see that they seem like your classic carchariniform or carcharinid shark build, except their heads are a little bit more compressed. Their fins again are larger and more kind of like wider than like their dorsal fins are a bit wider than most sharks of the genus Carcharinus. Overall, there's like a kind of like broadness to their fins, which is kind of interesting to see because a lot of Carcharinus sharks have like falcate fins, like really sharply pointed fins, and these are a little bit wider than that. They almost it's funny. It's like this shark looks like a mix of. It almost has like the head of a lemon shark and then the trunk of a sandbar shark. It's such an interesting shape. It's like there's these little subtle details that really make it unmistakable. This is you can't confuse this with other species. It may at first glance look a lot like other Carcharinus species, but when you take a closer look, it's like, wait a minute, the head is very like compressed, kind of almost like not shovel shaped because that's a little too extreme, but it is kind of like it's flattened in an interesting way. The body is actually pretty thick too. Has kind of like a humped back, and then the fins are pretty large and broad. So really cool looking shark. Like the Glyphis sharks are really interesting looking. It's amazing to see that. Again, these are freshwater or sharks that can endure long periods of freshwater. May even spend most of their lives in freshwater. So this is going to be really cool to learn more about the biology of these incredible animals. So. Got one more clip, but I just want to catch up on the comments. So, I'll be back, phone. She's charging ice cream, coffee. Yes, okay, yeah. Let me know what your favorite coffee is. I usually drink mine black actually, which is kind of funny. And I don't know why I got into that. I also like dark chocolate too. So I'm not like really super dark chocolate. So, I don't want an ad. Sorry, I didn't realize an ad was going to come up. So I'm just going to let that goof around. Skip. There we go. Sorry about that. This is also Karen's Marine. And this is actually really cool. So this is a smaller river shark individual. And this is a nice showcase of what I believe is a freshwater ray. Freshwater rays are also kind of interesting. They get to be huge. And they're very... Like, this sounds really dumb because it's a ray, but they are very flat. And I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe it's better camouflage against, like a muddy, bottom, like a featureless river bottom. Maybe it's a good way to camouflage itself because there's quite a few, freshwater or rivering animals that do have like a very flat build. So, but this is so cool to see a freshwater ray and a river shark being in the same tank. That's super awesome. So this reminds me again. I know I mentioned the VIMS tank, the Virginia Institute of Marine Science tank. They were doing a really cool study on sharks' electromagnetic reception, and they had these dusky sharks in the pool just like this. And I asked them if I could step into the pool to snorkel with them. They said absolutely not. So it's too much of a liability. But they were baby dusky sharks, so they were fine. But but they were like, no, absolutely not. You would probably stress out the animals, and also the animals may investigate you. And, all sharks, big or small, they do have the needle sharp teeth. So, like the razor sharp teeth. So, probably was not a good idea in hindsight, but I did get to see the pool on the surface and just, see their fins kind of like cutting through the surface of the water. It was so cool. I really wish I could go in, but anyway. But this whole tank setup reminds me of that, so... But it's really cool to see, again, just a rare freshwater ray. And I actually would love that, like, his head and his back look like a little mound, like a little hill. Kind of like, or a little shoal, if you will. Beautiful camouflage strategy for a muddy seabed, especially with the dark brown coloration. The river sharks, it's cool to see how active swimmers they are. Very capable hunters. They're not bottom dwelling, clearly. Like they like to be in the mid-water column. Very curious about their surroundings. Really active. And again, just they have those broad fins. Like that's the one thing I'm just keep noticing is that every single fin, the pectoral fins, the pelvic fins, the dorsal is the anal fin, and then the caudal fin, they're all wider. You know, the pelvic fin especially is kind of fascinating to see because like for bull sharks or other carcharinus sharks, their pelvic fins are actually quite a bit smaller, and their second dorsal fins also a bit smaller too. So I'm curious why this kind of shark has evolved this feature. So I'm very, very excited to learn more about the river sharks and see what they're all about. They are critically endangered species, and I think they have been reclassified. We're definitely going to take a look at IUCN Red List because it used to be, and I think we've covered this on a stream too. It used to be that there were multiple critically endangered species, and then they may have been reorganized into Glyphis gangeticus, which I believe is still critically endangered, but the other two river sharks currently are vulnerable. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that and see what changes happened, if any. But finally, this is just really cool to see a tank of elasmobranchs. So sharks and rays collectively form the group of elasmobranchs. This is a group that is separate from chimeras. They're all cartilaginous fish, but chimeras are their own thing, and sharks and rays are this wonderful club of elasmobranchs. So they're uniquely related, and it's just kind of cool to see them all sharing that same space. So, all right. I once had a Venezuelan coffee at an empanada shop in Venice Beach, Florida. Oh my god, I cannot find its match. Oh, that sounds really good, Howard. I gotta try that. Venezuelan coffee in Venice Beach. I might have been to Venice Beach, actually. Is that near Sarasota? I think I have been to Venice Beach, and it's really sad because that's a very famous shark tooth hunting location, but I did not go shark tooth hunting. I think I was on a book festival there, but really pretty location. But are the tanks temporarily because they look way too small for the sharks and rays? Yes. So I think those tanks look more like research tanks. They don't look like, they're not public display tanks. And let's learn more about Cairns Marine. Let's see. So they were talking about spear-tooth shark Glyphis glyphis, which is critically endangered. All sharks and clips were collected by the team at Cairns Marine under special permit for a strategic breeding program at Melbourne Aquarium. Okay. So that's why I thought that this seemed okay because this was... so you're right, Bibia. That's a great question. This is a temporary holding tank for these sharks and rays. So, and what's kind of cool about that, it could be a quarantine tank. So when... Because I used to be an aquarist, very, very small scale, very briefly, but I did take care of fish. I never took care of sharks, sadly, but I did take care of bony fish and a few reptiles for VIMS, and actually for the Seacoast Science Center too, which is in New Hampshire. Yeah, shoot, we actually got cat sharks, and I left before the cat sharks arrived, which is really sad. But anyway, long story short, when you take care of when you have aquarium animals for a public aquarium, and if I'm just gonna say for a public aquarium, when you have aquariums, you have the display tank, which is like your big tank, but it takes a very long time to create the right ecosystem, and you have to think of a lot of different factors. And I'm talking about like bacteria, plankton, like the microbiology of that tank. You have to get that right before you introduce animals into it. And you have to get like the pH right, the salinity right, the, what am I missing? The calcium carbonate right, like the material for snails to build their shells. So it's very delicate. You have to be very, very careful. And so what you do is if you have a new animal straight from the ocean, you put them in quarantine tanks. So these are behind the scenes. These are not for display. The quarantine tanks are for the fresh from the ocean kind of animals. So I'm assuming this is a quarantine tank. It's for the ocean specimens to slowly get acclimated to the changes that they need to live in for the display tank. So for example, say we caught these sharks and the salinity was like 5 parts per thousand. This quarantine tank might start at 5 points per thousand, which is like where the sharks were caught from, and then slowly we dial it down to 0 because the display tank that we eventually want to move them to is also 0, if that makes any sense. It's like you slowly change the water chemistry of the quarantine tank to match the tank, the display tank. On top of that, you also want to, monitor the animals, monitor their health, see how they're doing behaviorally, and also check for any diseases and kind of make sure that they don't bring anything into the display tank. So this is probably a quarantine tank, either for research or just even for monitoring when they're transferred to their eventual home in a display tank. So, but what's also kind of funny is that quarantine is it can also be fish jail. We had some fish that were, a little naughty, and we've had to remove them a couple times, just to kind of like chill them out. So it's also fish jail. It's also like a timeout. It's also like literal quarantine. It also, more importantly, can be quarantined medically for, if a fish, for whatever reason, is developing fin rot is like the big one. It could be a place where we remove the individual fish and put them in quarantine behind the scenes. And you could introduce like medicine into their quarantine tank, and ways that you can kind of treat what's causing the fin rot before you introduce them back. So this is a very long-winded answer, but aquaria is kind of fascinating. So it's a pretty interesting field. Shark husbandry, and I'm just advocating this for public aquariums. I really, really do not like the idea of private shark collections because they're so, for the most part, they're so endangered as a group of animals that if it's a public aquarium where the goal is education, that's okay with me. But if it's a private aquarium, I have reservations about that because it's like, I don't know if that's really good for the animal, and it's not really good for society per se. So I had a point about that, and I forgot where I was going with that. I totally forgot my train of thought, so maybe it'll come back to me. That's what it was. For public aquariums, taking care of sharks is a very interesting field because you can actually learn a lot about their behavior, and it's a branch of science which is like shark husbandry, and there's for every animal there's like husbandry manuals, but the science of taking care of sharks in public aquariums is very interesting, and there are observations that you can make that you wouldn't be able to get in the wild. But also keep in mind that the shark is in a very controlled setting that is very, very different from its natural behavior. The one thing I do think of is we have sand tiger sharks in our aquariums. Like sand tigers, actually both sand tigers and sandbars, those are very popular sharks in American aquariums, and on the East Coast at least. And those two species in the wild are very migratory, like highly migratory. Like they do not stay in one place year round. They make drastic migrations from the mid-Atlantic to Florida and then back. It's a very long distance for an animal. And so like that always kind of freaks me out, that when I see like the tanks of the sand tigers and the sandbar sharks in one location, even though it's public, it does kind of make me sad because it's like those animals have an instinct of migrating and they're not able to do that. Just like we have a lot of behavioral observations of those two species in aquaria, but I think it's important to bear in mind that they're not living they're not living their natural life cycle. Like their life cycle is to migrate, and then their breeding correlates with migration and water temperature. So it's very complicated. So, but anyway, let me catch up on catching up on the comments. So, yes, near Sarasota. Okay, so Venice Beach. That is the one I was thinking of. Awesome. Baby's coffee is 80% chocolate. Ooh, that sounds really good. 80% chocolate. Vienna Meringue coffee with lots of chocolate, chips, sprinkles. That sounds awesome, actually. Man, that's great. I'm getting into, my brother and his wife, they bought me an ice cream maker a couple years ago, and I never used it until, I met my fiance, and I started improving my cooking skills and everything. But I made ice cream lately. I made like coffee, chocolate chip brownie ice cream, like homemade, and it's now I'm actually really enjoying making ice cream. It's a lot of fun. I think that ice cream maker is like $50 on like online, so it's a fun thing. If anybody wants a hobby, ice cream making is a pretty fun one. So as a side gig, so or as a side hobby. So anyway. So Glyphis fowlerae. So we'll start with fish base because I'm kind of curious to see what it has on the species and if it has any insight into, how the taxonomy has changed. So let's check this out. Glyphis fowlerae, discovered in 2010 by Campagno, White, and Cavana. So Campagno, Howard knows this as well. Huge name in the shark world. Like, maybe the name in the shark world, I want to say. Like, Campagno has authored incredible work, including Sharks of the World. So he's really, really amazing contributor to a lot of like our global sense of sharks, our global shark guide. So it's really cool that he authored this species. It's so interesting that he discovered the species, actually. And also, this is named after Dr. Sarah Fowler. So Fowler is literally, actually, a co-author of Sharks of the World. I have a copy of it in my hand right here. So she's also a huge name. That's actually extremely cool. So this is Tautonomus with Carcharias glyphis. I have never heard of Tautonomus, so let's check that out. What does Anonymous say? Like, we are anonymous, we are legion, we are Tautonomus, we are legion. Tautonomus. Let's see. Is an adjective describing a scientific name where the generic and species-specific names are the same. Okay. Tautonomus with Carcharias glyphis. This is a little strange. Okay, so I think it was referring to this used to be Glyphis. I don't know if that's a tautonym. A tautonym is a scientific name of a species in which both parts of the name have the same spelling, such as Rattus. So I know there's Glyphis, but I don't know why they're calling this Carcharias glyphis, and it doesn't matter because this is Glyphis fowlerae, so that's a little confusing, but learn something new. We know what tautonomous means now, so yeah. Yep. Oh, this is cool. It's a well-known zoo technique to have separate places for animals in order to introduce them, like you said. Also could be used as a motel. Some animals won't procreate unless they have some privacy. Oh, interesting. That's a really cool point, Vivia. And actually, you know what? That's a great point. Because it's like, it makes sense, especially if you are trying to breed, like from a fish perspective. If you're trying to breed a certain fish, it has to be like probably very specific conditions to be met. Usually, again, it's water temperature. Water temperature is kind of like the big one. So, but that's super interesting. So, it sounds dangerous to a machine which make ice. Yeah. No, the ice cream maker it's pretty safe. It's pretty awesome. So, Howard, I'm gonna star this. 100% agree. Love Campagno's work. Me too. He's incredible. So, one of my absolute favorites. So, all right. So, Glyphis fowlerae, the Borneo River Shark. Let's see. I won't read through all of this because it's going to be like super detailed, but short snout, broadly rounded dorsoventral view. This is all super detailed. I think I'll just skip to the biology because this is going to be. It would be great to have like a picture guide comparing the Glyphis species, like all these measurements. Like this is the correct way, of course, to differentiate species. Like there will be just minor differences. But I won't read all that out loud because that'll be kind of tedious. So, the biology of the species is essentially unknown. Development presumably by placental viviparity, so live birth, as suggested by the newborn young and by reference to other related carcharinids. Adults of either sex, including pregnant females, were not available for examination. The type locality was described to have very low banks that slope gradually down to a flat and muddy bottom. Little information available on the hydrology of the area. However, the lower Kinabatangan Sagama wetlands, RMSAR site, provides the following hydrological characteristics of streams of the Kulamba Wildlife Reserve, where Kampong Abaya is located. Salinity 1.7 to 1.9. So that's really low. So salinity is measured if they're doing parts per thousand or practical salinity unit, which is PSU. 1.7 to 1.9 is extremely low. That is actually almost fresh water. It's brackish water, but the scale is just as kind of like a fun, quick lesson. 0 to about 35 parts per thousand. So is like the scale salinity, and I'll break this down in the chat actually. So, oh hey, we got a new person, Noah Daigle. I just discovered your channel while doing a project with the Dagno shark. About to transfer to University in California to go into marine bio and specialize in shark studies. Hey, that's awesome. Noah, welcome to the channel. This is super cool. And also, California, congrats. That is extremely exciting. As that is such a hot spot, such a hot spot for white sharks being, the big draw. But like, you've got so many cool species. Horn sharks, the Channel Islands, like so many really cool spots to have really exciting shark encounters. So congratulations, this is so cool. And thank you for joining us. So are you transferring, out of curiosity, I always like asking, because we do have guests from around the world. Are you transferring from another university in the United States, or are you transferring from a different country? If so, if you feel comfortable, please leave in the chat. I love learning where people are from. And I have the flags represented here in the bottom bar. So we got, so far, America, Canada, Indonesia, and the Netherlands. So Sharktooth Hill, yes, absolutely. So that's super, super cool. Yeah, no, California is awesome for shark research. That's fantastic. Like, honestly, I would say in the United States, California and Florida are the two big places to go study sharks. I know there's a university in California that is part of. I think this is with the American Lasering Society. There were 4 schools that were big names that carried a lot of weight. One of them is in California. There might be 2 in California. Actually, I gotta figure this out now. It's oh man, VIMS, Virginia Institute of Marine Science, which is like kind of my alma mater, if you will. That was one of them for shark research. Like, it's kind of funny. VIMS is a very small campus, but they've done a lot of research on sharks and have contributed to a lot in global shark science. So especially like shark fisheries, like kind of understanding how they operate. So let's see, VIMS shark associations. I don't know. I'm just gonna Google this really quickly because I know there's like this thing that. Oh, that's cool. Hi, yes, I'm very excited, thank you. I'm transferring from another college in the U.S. It's a community college. I'm landlocked state. Always live near the ocean. It's home to me. Awesome. Man, congratulations. That is so cool. I don't know if you're like me, where I don't like being in landlocked states, and I know that sounds silly, but like I don't like not being connected to the water. Every time I visit a landlocked state, I feel like uncomfortable. So I'm really glad that you're going to be in a new state by the sea. That's so cool. Just congrats. It's awesome. Welcome to the channel. So I can't think I can find the association. I don't like the American Society. There's something. There's a famous shark association. I have to look it up. That had like 4 schools that were specifically like the big players, and I can't remember what it is. So I'm gonna try to look at the American Lasering Society. Okay. So this is the American Lasering Society, which is a pretty old body, and they do a lot of really cool conferences. Membership. Let's see. I don't think this is what I'm thinking of, but let's see. Well, it might be an opportunity to kind of learn more about them, because they are a very prestigious organization that do a lot of cool conferences. So the American Lasering Society was founded in 1983 as a non-profit organization to advance the science of the study of living and fossil sharks, skates, rays, and chimeras, and the promotion of education, conservation, and wise utilization of natural resources. AES membership is based, and I used to be a member, and like I haven't been active with it. I really should reinstate membership. Honestly, you know what, I'm gonna put that on my to-do list actually, because it's like I was kind of more of like I haven't been as active with them, and I really should, to be honest. But anyway, AA's membership is based on the calendar year. Members whose dues are received between November 1st and December 31st. Members of good standing. Blah blah blah. I'm trying to find the universities that. Let's see. So, well, here's how you can join. As far as membership goes, but that's not really wanted to find. I thought this had a coalition of 4 universities, but let's check out the conferences. I'm kind of curious about this. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. I've been there, actually. So, the 2026 conference is in New Orleans in the Sheraton. I've literally been in that Sheraton. That's an awesome hotel, by the way. So, which is so... Wow, okay. Oh, this is... Oh my gosh, okay. Wow. Oh my gosh, okay. This is really cool. Sorry. So Chip Cotton is awesome. This is really funny. I don't recognize these names. Actually, no. I've never met Jim, but Jim looks familiar. I don't know Brian Fraser or Tonya or Vicky. Chip used to work at Vim's, and he was one of the people who was kind of like a mentor for me. He was one of my favorite educators. Just kind of like really breaking down, mostly like we would talk about like fish classification and kind of like, or dichotomous keys and how they work. He is super cool, and just like, sorry, I just got a jolt seeing his name. He's really cool, and it looks like, I guess he manages all these conferences. That's really cool. Sorry, I'm really going into a rabbit hole here. So I'm going to click on students really quick. That is so exciting to see that Chip's name's on there, actually. Here we go. Okay. I can't find it. I know there's something, and I feel like it is this, but there was like this whole list of like the 4 schools. So if I do find it, I promise to share that, because it's like, you know, there were 4 American schools that were really like the top shark schools. Vim's was one of them, but I know the others were in Florida and California. So, okay, that's not gonna work here. I was curious where this link would go. So, but anyway, getting back to salinity. Sorry about that. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I hate it. I feel so trapped. Gotcha. Yeah. Sorry. I just saw your comment, Noah, about the landlocked states. 100%. So. Yep. All right. So sorry about the audio. Thank you guys for your patience. I'm glad it's better now. So salinity. So I'm gonna do 0 parts per thousand to, or sorry, 0 ppt. So salinity is really cool as far as like understanding how it can dictate a lot of habitat changes and shark distributional changes. So there's like a couple main basic salinity categories, and it was really cool to see that this fish-based article is showing that this shark lives in 1.7, what was it, 1.7 to 1.9 parts per thousand. It's either parts per thousand or PSU, because there's no other unit that makes sense for that measurement. So, but that's actually really cool because that's extremely low. So I'm just going to do a quick lesson breaking it down. So 0 to 0.5 is freshwater. And usually in freshwater ecosystems, it's everything that, we're familiar with, like, bass, sunfish, bluegills, a lot of insects, a lot of plants, what is it? Goldfish, so we all know what freshwater is, right? 0.6 to 10 parts per thousand. Okay, so the next major unit is 0.6 to 10 parts per thousand. This is where this shark is living, as far as like where this individual is found. This is brackish water, also known as oligohaline. Oligo is Latin for little, and haline is Latin for salt. I think yeah, no, yeah, it's Latin for salt, so it means a little salty. So what's kind of cool is like brackish water is where you start to see some changes. Where the big one is a lot less plants. A lot of plants don't like brackish water habitat. So you start to see like trees disappear. You start to see like shrubs disappear. You get more like marsh grasses and things like that. As far as freshwater fish, you'll still get quite a few of them, but you're starting to get some of the brave saltwater fish in this kind of environment. So in my part of the world, bull sharks enter this kind of environment, and they're the only shark that can do that. And it's really cool to see that this river shark, the Borneo River Shark, is entering this kind of environment. This is extremely hard for sharks to get into, which is really cool. Sharks that are able to penetrate into brackish water or oligohaline water, they are able to exploit prey items or like a natural resource that other sharks can't, because they can't handle that low of a salinity. So it's really cool that, you know, bull sharks and river sharks have this adaptation, because they can get some big freshwater fish that the other sharks can't. So these guys can go after bass, they can go after pikes, they can go after like gars, bowfins, sunfish. Like they can go after so many animals that are prey items that the other sharks can't. In my part of the world, we have like mullet, striped bass, a lot of like the, or actually also a lot of the herrings, a lot of like salmon. You know, they go into this kind of zone, but this is kind of a tough zone for ocean fish, right? Things get kind of interesting when you get to, let's do 11 parts per thousand. I'm kind of rounding up. 11 parts per thousand to 18 parts per thousand is mesohaline. So this means a little salt, or sorry, moderately salty. And this zone is kind of cool. This is like the real big transition zone where only the bravest freshwater fish go here. But they start to get kind of uncomfy. They don't like this zone. And you get a lot more saltwater fish, not quite a huge amount. Where I live, there is another shark species, the dusky smoothhound, also known as the smooth dogfish. They entered this zone, and you know, so you got a little bit more action. You start to get oysters, you get mussels. I mean, you have crabs everywhere, but like jellyfish are a big thing. So you start to see it become much more oceany, but it's still not quite there yet, which is pretty interesting. Ooh, Howard, that's so cool. We get Greenland sharks coming up the St. Lawrence Seaway. I gotta look that up. That is super cool. St. Lawrence Seaway salinity. That is extremely cool. I want to see if I can get a salinity map on that. Okay. Alright, we'll see what we can get here. I'll finish up what I was... so, 19 parts per thousand to... I'm going to say 31, or I guess 30... I guess it doesn't really matter, but like 19 parts per thousand to like, I don't know, 30 parts per thousand. Or I guess I should say 31. Yeah, I guess I'll just say 31. So 19 parts. Oh, Bibia. 0 is ridiculous low. Are they looking for pure salt only in ACL because all water has some pollution and there is a lot of salts? So 0 is distilled 10 times, I think. Interesting. Really cool question. So it's interesting. Like all the factors. There's so many different factors that are going to affect a shark's distribution. So one thing that I find really fascinating is it's not just the salinity itself, but like how steep is the gradient. So for example, in the Chesapeake Bay, you know, bull sharks. Actually, I should pull up a map for that, and I'll get to that a little bit because that's a really good question. But the last or the second last major chunk is 19 parts per thousand to 31 parts per thousand. This is polyhaline, which means very salty. So this is there's only like 1 or 2 freshwater fish here. This is a big shark zone and a big marine life zone. So a lot of animals are coming in to this zone that are from the ocean. Not everybody, but like in the Chesapeake Bay, we've got like sandbar sharks, sand tiger sharks, like hammerhead sharks. We've got quite a few species entering this zone, and this is a very big ocean zone, but not everybody's here yet. But it is still very oceany. And then finally, 32 parts per thousand. Sorry, euhaline. 32 parts per thousand plus is true seawater, like full seawater. So a good example is great whites don't really like, at least in the bay, I've heard rumors of great whites going into lower salinities in other areas, but not in the Chesapeake Bay. In Virginia, great whites like to be in the euhaline, like the full seawater zone. They don't like to be in polyhaline waters because it's not salty enough for them. Echinoderms, like sea stars and sea urchins, they also are very... They need that full salt, like that full blast. They don't really like going into low salinity. So it's really cool to see, like, salinity has a huge effect on habitat. It has a huge effect on the distribution of animals. And I love seeing the change, where it's kind of like a cool, smooth scale where you see, like, things slowly change, when you go from 0 to 32 parts per thousand, or 35 is, like, true seawater. But on that note, I'm very curious to see if we can get some info on salinity. I hate that Google changed its display settings. It's probably sick of people capturing photos and stuff, but this is really cool. I'm trying to see for the St. Lawrence Seaway in Canada if we can get some salinity units, because that's really cool that Greenland sharks have been found there, and I can totally see that. And it would make sense that they can maybe go into a zone that is like maybe a little bit less salty. Actually, this might be something. Here we go. Because I'm seeing some of this. So here we go. Yes. Okay. I think this is it, and I could be wrong because I don't speak French. But oh shoot, I'm trying to find the display for this. Oh man, I guess I'll just visit this so I could show this on full screen. Okay, where does the estuary end and the Gulf begin? And this was the figure that kind of really caught my eye. Okay, here we go. So this is, I believe this is the St. Lawrence Seaway, and okay, this will be better to show. Sorry about that. I think this is the St. Lawrence Seaway. I don't speak French, unfortunately. I really should learn at some point, but I do recognize Gaspe. I do recognize this city. So, and I also recognize that. Another really cool concept about salinity is freshwater is not as dense as saltwater. So saltwater sinks below freshwater, and I see this 33 and 35 parts per thousand. This is the parts per thousand symbol. This is indicating that the bottom of the Gulf of St. Lawrence is extremely salty, like full seawater, right? So Greenland sharks are entering here. The middle section is 32 to 33, so this is still full seawater. But this upper section is 25 to 31, so this is actually getting into polyhaline, the polyhaline zone. So what's kind of cool is that if a Greenland shark was found in the seaway, which is along this area on the left, then it is actually entering into an area of lower salinity. And then if he's just in the Gulf, he's spending time in the deep, full salty water. But that's actually really cool. Sorry, that was a fun little tangent. I'll get back to our Borneo shark in a little bit. But thank you for sharing that, Howard, because that's actually really cool. I've never heard of a Greenland shark going into lower salinity water. So that's extremely cool. So let's see. So we got here because I was really excited about salinity right here. And then Chesapeake Bay salinity of the map. I do want to answer your question, Bibia, because this is a subject that is really fascinating to me. So we're going to take a look at this. I've stared at this map so many times. We're just going to download it. Here we go. Okay. So this is the Chesapeake Bay, where I am from, and you can see that the gradient here is the zero parts per 0 parts per 1,000, which is red, and then you go further down into this like dark blue area, which is 24 to 27. So this is polyhaline. So we're seeing freshwater polyhaline. So the thing I wanted to illustrate, as far as Bibbia's question goes, is what's kind of interesting is that bull sharks come into the estuary every summer, right? And we've seen them in the York River. We've seen them definitely in the Potomac River. That's really like the famous location. We've totally seen them in Maryland, right? We never see them in the James River. And this area is a highly populated area. You know, there's a lot of people here. And a lot of people fishing here. And yet you never see bull sharks. And I'm like, why is that? And my theory is, take a look at the James River versus the rest of the bay, right? It seems to me that what the shark is doing is that the shark either might be doing it by itself or might be following its prey items who are doing this. What I feel like is happening is that either the shark or his prey items are choosing the lower gradient, like the smoother change. Like, it's easier for the shark to adapt to a lower salinity environment if he has time as he swims. So if he tried to go for the James River right now, like the minute he gets into the bay, if he turned left into the James River, it might be too much of a change and too much of a shock to his system, and it might function as kind of like a wall. He's like, oh, I'm not going to do that. That's too much. But if he turned right and just went straight up into the bay, you know, going into the York River is less of a challenge. Going into the Potomac and up the bay, less of a challenge. It's a very smooth process where it's like, you know what, I have some time to acclimate and get to each, you know, as I'm swimming, I'm, you know, getting to each area, and, you know, each change here is a little bit better, a little bit, or like a little bit smoother, a little bit less difficult. Like, he's not doing the full blast of that change, like hiking up that salinity hill, if you will. Going into the James, he's going into the Chesapeake Bay with less of a challenge, if that makes sense. Like it's choosing the path of least resistance, which is like spending more time letting your system acclimate to lower salinity versus immediately going to the James River. So I just wanted to point that out because your question reminded me of that, where salinity is one factor. The gradient of salinity, like the amount of change and when it, like the geography of the James River is like pushing so much fresh water, you know, out versus like the smooth flow of the bay and the other rivers. Like, it's kind of interesting that could have an effect on the shark's distribution. To answer your question more pointedly, there's other factors like dissolved oxygen, like how high or low is the dissolved oxygen content of the water. That's another factor. Pollution for sure is another factor. Sediment load, like how murky is the water, how much crap, like particles of sediment are in the water, and how much of that is the shark breathing. So there's a lot of great questions, and I really appreciate your question because it brings up a lot of great there's so many factors that can influence the shark's distribution. So salinity is a really big one and a very important one, but you know, and actually here we go. Total suspended solids. They have a little measurement here on fish base. Dissolved oxygen, they mention that as well. Temperature is a big one. pH is another one. So there's a lot of factors. The most, and this is actually really cool on the biology note of the Borneo River Shark. The most important features to take note of are the very low salinity, practically fresh water, and the high suspended solids. So this animal is adapted to live in a very murky, like just cluttered, like high sediment environment that's very low salinity. So that's actually, this animal might be a little bit kind of like really cool and like really extreme. Let's see. Sam just saw this little insight to why Richmond was established where it was. Rocky riverbeds of the James became a large hindrance to any travel further west, and the James is very narrow and heavily clogged with tree debris because of the elevation fall from the Blue Ridge Mountains. I live only 8 minutes from the James west of Richmond. Sam, that's super cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I've been to Richmond a couple times and I really like it. It's a cool area. And geographically, it's really cool because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's on the fall line. So it's really cool to see that you have like rapids in the city, and then you get to go right down to the coastal plain, and where theoretically, you can encounter like marine animals. The big one being like shad or herring. So, that's really cool. Thank you for sharing. Just outside the Piedmont, that's super cool. Bibia. Yeah, so sleeper sharks like carrion, and they get to be very old. Um, they've been caught ice fishing at St. Lawrence. This is so cool. Let's see. That is so interesting. So lots of striped bass. Oh, that's awesome. I love striped bass are really cool. I've seen one snorkeling in New Hampshire, and he was like a little guy, but I would love to see one in the bay, like one of the big ones. That'd be super cool. So, all right, let's learn more about the Borneo River Shark. This is a cousin, the spear-toothed shark, Glyphis glyphis. And again, just nice photograph actually, showing some of the features of this animal. So again, the flattened head, the broad fins, the weird dorsal fin shape actually. Like it is strange because usually sharks kind of have like the 90-degree angle, but this is at like this weird 45-degree slant. So interesting to see that. So, no image available about the Borneo River Shark. This is copy and pasted from Fishbase. No real information on it. So, let's check out... I have the Ganges shark, and actually just to show you what I was seeing, let's check out the genus Glyphis. Okay. This is IUCN Red List for the Conservation of Nature. So here we go. Spear-toothed shark, Glyphis glyphis, is vulnerable. Northern River Shark, Glyphis garicki, is vulnerable. Ganges shark, Glyphis gangeticus, is critically endangered. I really feel like this changed. So I'm just going to breeze through the assessments and kind of see what's going on here. This is also found in Borneo. I really feel like I feel like the Borneo River Shark might have been reclassified. Taxonomy in detail. It is! Look at this! Okay, here we go. Glyphis gangeticus was originally described from the Hooghly River, India. Records of Glyphis gangeticus are sparse, and there have been previous issues reporting due to misidentification of other carcharidids, mainly the bull shark, Carcharodontis lucus, and broadfin sharks, Lamiopsis species, resulting in historic ambiguities about the range of Glyphis gangeticus. The taxonomic status of the species was recently resolved with Lee et al. In 2015, demonstrating that Glyphis siamensis and Glyphis fowlerae are synonyms of Glyphis gangeticus. Based on molecular data, there's an undescribed Glyphis species currently known from Bangladesh and Malaysian Borneo. Wow, so this is wild. Okay, so this is really interesting, and this is a very rare moment. Excuse me. And I'm sorry, I hate this. I really don't like this update that my Ecamm has done, where I know it's squishing the screen, and I apologize because I want you guys to see this. Okay. Alright, I guess that's the best we'll kind of get. Okay, I guess that's the best we'll get. So, okay, so this is really wild, and this is really we've never really seen this before. This is the first time we've ever seen this actually, where a shark, a newly described species, reverts back to an older species name. So, the Ganges shark, Glyphis gangeticus, it is interesting to see that the Borneo River Shark is actually a synonym for this species, and if so, this species is critically endangered. So that's actually really scary, and let's check out the justification. So The Ganges shark is a medium-sized shark with patchy distribution in the Indo-West Pacific from Pakistan to Borneo. It is a euryhaline species that inhabits tropical riverine, including freshwater, estuarine, and inshore marine habitats to a depth of 50 meters. This is immediately kind of concerning because, bull sharks also live in freshwater sometimes, but bull sharks can be found in very deep water. So they can go into the rivers, they can go into the coast, and they can go down pretty far, pretty deep. But 50 meters for this species, that's for a shark, that's pretty shallow. And so I'm nervous about this not having refuge at depth, not being able to escape fishing pressure. So, The species is caught as bycatch in subsistence, small-scale, and industrial fisheries, and is retained for its meat and fins. The species is extremely rare, with very few known historic and recent records, despite extensive surveys of sharks and rays across its known range. Its reliance on riverine and estuarine habitats make it particularly susceptible to intensive historic and current fishing pressure and increasing habitat modification and degradation across its entire known range. It has little refuge from these threats. It is possibly locally extinct in Pakistan, Myanmar, and Borneo, with recent records only known from West and East India and Bangladesh. It is suspected that the Ganges shark has undergone a population reduction of over 80% over the past 3 generation lengths due to levels of exploitation, and given the rarity of contemporary records, it is estimated that the number of mature individuals of the Ganges shark is very small, less than 250, so that's pretty bad. With inferred continuing decline due to ongoing intensive and unmanaged fishing pressure and habitat degradation across its entire range, and is assessed as critically endangered. So it's scary. This is a critically endangered shark. And it makes sense. When you think about the habitat that the shark lives in, think about just like spatially, how rivers work, where it's like you have a very narrow body of water. You have housing, development, fishermen on the like one bank, and then housing, development, and fishermen on the other bank, farming, pollution. Like you have such concentrated human activity on either side of the river, from two sides pushing in. Whereas a coastline, is like development on a coastline and fishing on a coastline. It's also bad, but there's such a difference between like being surrounded on all sides by human activity versus a coastline where you have like one half being like human influence and the other half being the open ocean, or the open sea. And like it's a very overly simplified analogy or overly simplified model because of course, like you have like so much impacts anyway, you have trawling, fishing, and everything. But it is, I feel like it's interesting to compare a coastal environment, like an actual beach, like a seacoast environment, like think of like your local beach, versus a river environment where you can argue that a river environment is just slammed with human impacts compared to a coastal environment. Like a coastal environment is like, putting human influence in, from one direction, but a river environment is getting both sides, and in spatially less area. There's less area for the shark to move, versus like an entire ocean side. So it's really wild, to think about spatially. And it's really sad that this species is a good example of how, it's impacting its conservation. So let's learn more about the biology, because I'm curious to see that. The Ganges shark is euryhaline, so meaning it travels everywhere, like 0 to maybe 30 parts per thousand, and occurs in tropical. Bull sharks are also euryhaline, and it occurs in tropical rivers in freshwater and estuarine conditions, in estuaries and in coastal habitats at depths of 0 to 50 meters. Juvenile and subadult Glyphis species generally occur in rivers, while adults are generally coastal and marine. So that's actually really cool. That's a pattern for sharks too, where the little ones like to be in these like safe habitats, like these nursery areas that, and when I say safe, I mean like pre-human impact. But as far as shark evolution goes, it's a great survival strategy to have your pups in a low salinity area where they're free from predators like big sharks that can't go in there, like tiger sharks, white sharks. Like those sharks can't handle low salinity. So if you're like a sandbar shark or a river shark or a bull shark, it makes sense that you have your pups in these low salinity areas, and the pups grow, free from predation pressure. Like they can munch on all, like, the estuarine fish, and then once they get big enough, they go out into the open ocean. So it's actually really cool to see. I really like seeing that. As an animal, as a shark gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it changes its habitat and goes out into like deeper and deeper water. I just think there's something really cool about that. It makes me. I keep talking about Jurassic Park on this channel, but it makes me think of I think it was Lost World, where they were talking about all the big. Oh, thank you, Bibia. I appreciate that. I think it was Lost World, where they were talking about all the big dinosaurs were in the center of the island and the little ones were on the outskirts. It was like I love stuff like that, like habitat, like animal distribution, like habitat kind of having such a big impact on where the animals are just distributed. It's just really interesting. So anyway, let's see. So we've got and also thank you, baby. I'm going to start that. I really appreciate that comment. Thank you. Let's see. So we were talking about the adults versus juveniles. Genetic data supports marine dispersal of the Gangeticus shark across its known Indo-Pacific range. It reaches a maximum size of 266 centimeters total length, which was measured. However, jaws collected in Pakistan have been estimated to come from a larger individual of 275 centimeters. So that's a pretty large shark. So that's, was it, 2.7 meters? So that's like, what, 8 feet? Let me see if I get this right. Centimeters to feet. This insane measurement that we have. 275. Okay. 9 feet. Okay. So that's a pretty large shark, actually. Pretty interesting. Males mature at about 178 centimeters. Female size of maturity is unknown. Females are probably larger than the males. It's typical for female sharks to be larger than male sharks. So reproduction is presumed to be placental. Thank you, baby. 8 to 9 feet. Thank you. Reproduction is presumed to be placental viviparous based on other Glyphis species. Its size at birth is 56 to 61 centimeters. There's no information on the species' maximum age and age of maturity. Hence, generation length is inferred from the Eurahaline bull shark. Interesting. So that's actually really interesting. So they're comparing bull sharks, or they're using bull sharks to infer generation length. So they're comparing a bull shark's life history. When they don't have the data, they don't know how this species operates. They compare it to a bull shark, and I think that's really fascinating because it's not a bad idea. It can be wildly different, but it's not a bad idea that you compare. If you're trying to get that information, you're comparing to the next best or the next closest animal as far as like what is the most similar lifestyle wise. And bull sharks, again, they can enter fresh water. They can operate similarly to the river sharks, so it's kind of cool that they chose that species as the model. So that's pretty interesting. The bull shark has regional variation in age parameters among tropical and temperate and Indo-Pacific and Western Atlantic regions. See bull shark red list assessment. For anybody new to the channel, by the way, there's a theory about that, or I guess a hypothesis that repeat viewers have seen this already, but there's a hypothesis that bull sharks are actually multiple species, which I think is extremely cool. There's a hypothesis that bull sharks, Carcharodontis leucus, is a species complex of, I think, 3 different sharks. So one in the Atlantic, one in South Africa, and one in the Indo-Pacific, I believe. So that'd be so cool if that was real. And it might be real. It might be true because there's a lot of shark species that are hiding in plain sight. So this sentence reminded me of that. The bull shark has regional variation in age parameters among tropical and temperate and Indo-Pacific. Like the different regions, reflect the potential species complexes. Ooh, Sam, like the pig-eye shark. That's a great question. So the pig-eye shark is actually validly its own species. Pig-eye shark that's a great question because they look so close. Like bull sharks and pig-eye sharks, they look so similar. Like their differences are very subtle. I think the pig-eye shark has a larger first dorsal fin and it's a little bit more falcate looking. But they're so close looking. So that's a great shout out for the pig eye shark actually. But those are two different species. So related to that, currently we are considering all of these different populations of the bull shark, like the Indo-Pacific, Western Atlantic, etc., as one bull shark. But we could have future pig eye sharks, if you will. Like we could one day determine, wait a minute, the South African bull sharks are different. They're too different. They just breed together. Yeah, different. Exactly. Great point. Different number of vertebrae. Just different behavioral patterns. Like the big one being, are they? No. That's a great point. Different number of vertebrae. Oh, you mean like for the pig eye shark versus bull shark? You might be right actually. Because that vertebral counts are a way to determine species. Like they are a way to determine. Wait a minute, these two animals are actually different. Very subtle differences, but that's a great way to do it. So, I lost my train of thought. So right now we have the bull shark. So the pig eye shark is its own species. I think it's Carcharodontis amboinensis. We have the bull shark, which is Carcharodontis leucas. But within Carcharodontis leucas, there might be a couple other species. And I hope that if there is, they call it the Zambezi shark. I really hope they resurrect that name because it's such a cool name. I remember there's like a Discovery Channel special on Zambezi sharks when I was growing up, and it was just like I didn't realize that there were bull sharks, just with a cool name. So I hope they resurrect it because it's just really interesting. So as the Ganges shark is a tropical Indo-Pacific species, the generation length from the tropical northern Australia within the Indo-Pacific is considered the most appropriate, where female age of maturity is 9.5 years and maximum age is 26 years, resulting in generation length of 18 years. This is really good, actually, that they're doing this because this shark is critically endangered. Conservationists need to have some kind of estimate on how quickly or slowly does this animal reproduce, so you can have at least some kind of management. And on that note, let's figure this out. Is there anything conservation-wise happening for this animal? Let's see. In India, the Ganges shark is one of 10 species of chondrichthyans protected under Schedule 1, Part 2A of the Indian Wildlife Protection Act, 1972. However, the effectiveness of this measure is unknown. Ooh, Howard, yes, the Lake Nicaragua shark. Sorry, I got really excited. So yes, Lake Nicaragua shark. That'll be really cool if it's really separate from bull shark. So the Lake Nicaragua shark is technically right now considered to be bull sharks. But they're really weird because, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, I think there was a hypothesis about Lake Nicaragua sharks being like landlocked in Lake Nicaragua, that they actually lived there throughout their entire life history. And if that's so, that's amazing. I forget. I literally wrote about this in the Bull Shark Compendium, and I forget what I wrote actually as far as what happened with that. Like, 'cause it definitely was studied. There definitely was research on whether or not the Lake Nicaragua shark populations were landlocked versus did they find a way to connect it. See, I think, now that I'm saying this out loud, I think last time I checked, there was no evidence that the Lake Nicaragua sharks were like confined to Lake Nicaragua. If they were, though, that would be really cool, and that actually is a very strong argument for them potentially being a different species. So great shout out. That's really cool, actually. And actually, Lake Nicaragua. So story time with Lake Nicaragua sharks, actually. Lake Nicaragua sharks were, I think that might have been the first time I realized that there are some undocumented shark attacks. So we have the International Shark Attack File, which it's really the only thing out there, which is like the global resource on shark attacks. But there are anecdotal stories of people around Lake Nicaragua being consumed by sharks. And the details of those stories and the people who tell them, it's kind of like, yeah, that's legit. And scary. And it makes you wonder, wait a minute, how many other undocumented shark attacks have there been? And the number is still astronomically low because it's just, especially like in our social media age right now, the world's not exploding with shark attacks. Like we've had a perceived uptick in 2019, but you're still talking statistically like just something so ridiculously low. Like compared to like car crashes or dog attacks or bees or mosquitoes. It's like the number of shark attacks is just super low, but it's sensational because it's like this big flashy animal, So, but anyway, but there are a few cases of undocumented shark attacks. So the Lake Nicaragua shark incidents is one of them. In the Chesapeake Bay, there are actually a few, which is interesting because to this day, people keep saying there are no documented shark attacks in the Chesapeake Bay, and that's actually not true. There are, last time I checked, 4, but all of them are very old. Like they are like literally like 1900s, 1870s newspaper stories. So one is in Baltimore, one is in Norfolk. The other 2, I forget off the top of my head where they were. But like, it was like a ship was coming in to Norfolk. A guy fell overboard, and then he was devoured by something that they couldn't see. But they were like, "Wait a minute, that's probably a shark." Because we don't have any other large predatory animals in this region. We don't have alligators. We don't have, not to mention the contents. Yeah, vending machines kill 3. I love this. Sorry. Vending machines kill 3 times as many as sharks. Yes, thank you, Bruce. 100%. And then not to mention their contents. That's so true. Thank you. Yeah, this is so true. And I'm sorry, I don't want to sound sensationalist, but I do think it's really interesting because even in the Chesapeake Bay, there are, I believe it was 4. There's one documented shark attack in Virginia Beach from 2001, and that one's in the shark attack file. But there's 4 other ones that are just super old, and I think they're not in the file because they're kind of questionable. Because they're anecdotal. They're like newspaper stories of sailors saying that they saw something. But I believe them personally. I really do. The one in Baltimore is particularly fascinating because getting back to salinity, the salinity is so low that it's like, okay, I know what species this is. I did not need to be there 100 years ago to know what species this is. There's only one large predatory shark that can be in Baltimore level low salinity, and that's the bull shark. So it's kind of cool, like reverse detective work spanning like centuries, or a century, I guess. It's really interesting to go back in time, and actually related to that. Sorry, this coffee is, I think, really hitting me because I'm kind of on a roll. But Surabaya shark crocodile. This one is really interesting. Surabaya statue. There you go. Okay. So this is Surabaya in Indonesia? Let me double check that really quick. So this is a really famous story. It is Indonesia. Okay. So this is a really famous story from Indonesia. Oh yeah, Matawang Creek. Yeah. Actually, I think Howard Matawang Creek, I feel like it has to be in the shark attack file. It's so famous. But that's a great point. That is a great point. And actually, Matawang Creek, you know what? Even if it's in the file, it might be incorrect because people keep saying Great White for that one. So for anybody who doesn't know, Matawang Creek is in New Jersey, and that is like the famous. There was a spree of shark attacks that inspired the book and movie Jaws. It was a string of shark attacks in the early 1900s that were perpetuated by a bull shark. There might have been one that may have been a white shark, but I don't think that was confirmed. But they were misreported. All of them were misreported as white sharks, and the reality is, and actually, Howard, thank you for bringing it up because that's an excellent point. The reality is that Matawang Creek salinity is also lower, and there's only one shark that can do that. And bull sharks are in that area in that time of year, so it's just like, people keep saying white shark because that's the only shark that they know, but the reality was those attacks are likely perpetuated by a bull shark. So, So Also, also, if my fiance is still watching, I'm trying to go scuba diving in New Jersey this summer, and I just want to say I'm not going to that creek, and I'm going into a very safe area that is called Shark River. It is called Shark River. It literally is called Shark River. It is called Shark River, but it does not have sharks in it. As far as most divers know, it's a very safe, comfy dive site where there's bass and like sea bass and butterfly fish and stingrays. So I'm gonna be safe. It's gonna be safe. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. So anyway, Surabaya. So this statue is this really cool statue in Indonesia, depicting a shark and a crocodile and the territorial battle between them. So this I forget who is who. One of them is Sura and one of them is Baya, and this is the founding legend of the city of Surabaya, which is like a real city in Indonesia. But I think it was something like the shark kept coming up the river, and the crocodile kept saying like, "You gotta stop. You gotta stop." Entering my territory, or I'm gonna fight you. And the shark disobeyed and entered the crocodile's territory, and they got into this huge battle. And they eventually they found some kind of resolution. I forget what it was, but it represented like a historical event in Indonesia between two factions. But what's really cool about this story is that in this part of Indonesia, this is a statue of a generic shark, right? But because it's about a shark that goes upriver, you can narrow it down to either bull sharks or river sharks, and I think for this part of Indonesia, it is just a bull shark. But like it's kind of cool that you can classify a legend, like a cultural legend. You can actually it's really cool that you can work backwards and be like, wait a minute, there's only one shark that, or a handful of sharks that can go into fresh water. So for stories like this, even though this is a generic shark statue, you could say, you know what, that's a bull shark. That is about a bull shark. That story is about, a freshwater entering shark. So it vastly reduces the amount of possibilities it could be. So I think that's really cool. I think doing that kind of detective work, as far as whether you're trying to find shark attack perpetuators, or who is the star of these legends, or if you're trying to make a guess, habitat can reveal a lot, salinity can reveal a lot. I really enjoyed that this has turned into a big salinity episode, but it's so important. So it's really cool. So sorry, moving on. Oh, cool. Howard, that is cool. I didn't know that one. Honestly, I did not know either for the longest time, and that's one thing I love about the more people dig into Shark Week has its pros and cons. Sorry. I'm just gonna say, my fiance did text me, you betcha I'm still watching, so she, I promise I'll be safe. So Shark Week has its pros and cons, but unfortunately one of the cons is I feel like Shark Week keeps rehashing the same story, and it creates this myth that there's only one story to tell, or it creates this misconception that there's only one story to tell. The story being sharks are beautiful, fascinating animals, and some sharks eat people, but sharks are misunderstood and they need our help, and that's it. That's all that they talk about, right? And it's every single year, over and over again. And it is interesting. I love that the more we learn about sharks together, and the more we look at different cultures and different areas, and learn about these different legends, we were looking at Pacific Northwest cultures and their traditions with sharks a few streams ago. There's a lot of diversity, and there's a lot of stories, concerning sharks, and a lot of nuance. And it makes sense because sharks are global. Humans are global, sharks are global. We've existed, especially for humans who have been by the sea, all around the world, we've existed for thousands of years. So of course it makes sense that there's all these different stories, and it's just interesting that, we keep seeing this reinforced narrative of sharks are misunderstood. They're really cool. They're I feel like Shark Week has gotten better, and not to necessarily knock it, but it's kind of I feel like it's just kind of the same thing over and over again. It's kind of like big franchise movies that keep making the same thing over and over again, and it's just refreshing to see something different, like something like nuanced, and realize no, the world is still like very interesting, very diverse. There's so many mysteries and so many different things out there. It's super cool. So, and Howard, yeah, good point. Some of their episodes on prehistoric sharks have been excellent. So, and that's a really good point. So, I don't want to bash on them too much. I feel like I feel like at least in, I don't know if it's the United States or the West, but like somewhere that's either U.S. or West adjacent, I feel like there's been this kind of like box of our understanding of sharks, and I think it's kind of confined to, or not confined, but it's been largely Jaws and the reaction to Jaws. So Jaws being like sharks are man-eaters, and then the reaction to Jaws being like, no, sharks are misunderstood and really cool and need our help. And there's even so much more beyond that, you know. And so like things like Surabaya, or, you know, Pacific Northwest shark cultures, Polynesian shark culture, North American shark culture, you know, it really excites me. I think it excites our stream too, because, you know, it's just like so cool to see like, wow, I've never seen that before. I've never heard of this before. And it's just like, you know, these are legends from around the world, you know. It's so cool to see that. So sorry, I'm gonna get off my soapbox now, but getting back to conservation for the Ganges shark. So it's one of 10 species in the Schedule 1 Indian Wildlife Protection Act. However, the effectiveness of this measure is unknown, with ongoing issues in enforcement and compliance. And sadly, that makes sense, because there are some countries that have conservation intentions, if you will, but they're not enforced. So, yeah, thank you, Howard. You were right, though. They have entertained too much garbage science. Yeah, I mean, that whole 2013 Megalodon fiasco, that's what's really made me side-eye Shark Week. Like, and I think a lot of people, too. Like, because pre-2010s, it seemed like it was pretty awesome, and it was more actually about conservation. But I think, and actually it's kind of sad, we talked about this before, so I won't spend too much time on this, but it is kind of sad that, like, you know, Animal Planet, Discovery Channel, History Channel, like these were like big educational outlets, and I think they were actually pretty on the ball in the 90s and the 2000s, and then I would say for whatever reason, maybe late 2000s, 2010s, maybe they were losing viewership or something. They got weirder. Like, they turned into like reality shows, they turned into like just nonsense, and it could be viewership, because what's interesting conversely is that you can make an argument that platforms like YouTube has seen, you know, a rise of, you know, people devoted to very niche subjects, you know, and like kind of like maybe filling that void a little bit, potentially. I'm not really 100% sure. Excuse me, but I don't know. I mean, it's been sad to see, because it's like I don't know why that shift happened, and I'm gonna assume it's a viewership thing, but there was a shift to just, like you said, garbage science, like just bizarre stuff that doesn't make any sense. So, like, I don't know. I remember like the Dragon show, like they did a nature special on dragons, which is, looking back on it, completely weird. The Megalodon thing is related to that. Any Sasquatch show, it's just like all of it is, it's just all the same. So, yeah. Anyway. Let's see. In Bangladesh, the Ganges shark has been protected since 2012 under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Act. However, the effectiveness of this measure is limited due to a general lack of awareness and protection among fishers and traders. The species could benefit from some protection in the Sundarbans World Heritage Area if regulations are enforced. In Myanmar, 2 shark reserves were designed in the Mayak Archipelago in 2004, where targeting sharks and rays is prohibited. In 2008, a nationwide ban on the targeting sharks was announced. This is great. Despite the nationwide ban, sharks and rays continue to be captured in large numbers, partially because there's little or no enforcement and little knowledge of the ban in fishing communities. That's really sad. FAO guides, like the United Nations guides, those are great. As far as like a resource to help fishermen identify animals that like you can harvest or you shouldn't harvest. But really, I appreciate there are a few like grassroots communities or grassroots conservation efforts in these areas, and like I think it was one of the Blue Planets where you look at the behind the scenes did talk about that, where in some places they get severe pushback, some places they even get threats, but you have like for the name of like protecting these animals but also protecting your natural resources, like this kind of enforcement is really important because you can make legislation, but if it doesn't have teeth, it's not going to go anywhere. So and again, ultimately it's for the benefit of not just the sharks but also the humans, where if you keep fishing and overfishing a certain species, you're going to crash its population. It's not going to be able to recover. And on that note, side tangent, this dire wolf thing, the scientific community is really pushing back on it and getting angry about it, which is so interesting. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but we don't know if that's a legitimate strategy to help species. It might be, but apparently the consensus is right now is that the dire wolves are not actually dire wolves. They're genetically modified gray wolves. And it's not the resources spent resurrecting an animal is maybe not as useful as the same amount of resources devoted to protecting an animal that already exists. So little side tangent on that. Enforcing regulations like is important because it's not simple to extirpate an animal and then say let's resurrect it and bring it back. It's actually not that easy, and it's far more costly, and it's sad. So anyway, and I'm sorry to be a killjoy on the dire wolves, but like that's a lot of big names in the shark world. I really appreciate they've been very vocal on that news, and they've been very like, hey, this isn't what you think it is. This is kind of more of a publicity stunt kind of thing. So, but the wolf pups are very cute. They're really cool looking. They're very fluffy white gray wolves that are genetically modified. So it is quite Jurassic Parky. But anyway, to conserve the population and to permit recovery, a suite of measures will be required, which may include species protection, spatial management, bycatch mitigation, and harvest and trade management measures, including international trade measures. Effective enforcement of measures will be required, ongoing training and capacity building, including the area of species identification. Catch monitoring is needed to help understand population trends and inform management. So I will say this is very concerning because it sounds like for this river shark, the Ganges shark, this is a species that is critically endangered, ecologically is in a very bad position, being in an area with a concentrated human impact, and is not in a position to maybe receive a lot of direct conservation action. So this is very concerning for this species, unfortunately. I'm glad to see Howard, 100%. 100%. Actually, yeah, so I'm going to start that. We don't have a good track record of tampering with nature. 100%. So one big thing that the direwolf thing reminds me of is whenever we have tried, not maybe, well, I feel like every time we've tried to control, I thought the caps were intentional for a second, but it would be valid if they were, but we've had difficulties with is it the boll weevil? It's like the classic case study, but like we've had difficulties with introducing animals to control a pest, and then those animals in turn become a pest. So we introduce a new animal to control that pest, and then they explode in population. So it's like everything we have done has kind of made it worse, as far as like if you accidentally introduce a species into an environment, introducing another species to control that species is not going to be the wisest move. And I think that's kind of old school, early days trial and error conservation. So Dr. Jaws, yes, the direwolf, or this is Bibia, the direwolf is extinct and can't be brought back. TV and popular science magazines like big headlines better than the truth. Same goes for Discovery and National Geographic channels. Thank you, 100%. Also, I really appreciate that because it's like, it was kind of funny when they announced it. I was like, something just feels off. Like when they did like the interviews and stuff, like people were like super jazzed and like, this is incredible and everything. But the way that they were excited, I was like, this feels really, there's something about it that just feels weird. And I couldn't put my finger on it. And it felt like, I'm gonna be like a little mean to OSearch a little bit, but like it felt like OSearch, like the people who tag great white sharks, where with the very destructive fin tags, it kind of felt like them, where I was like, man, this is very flashy, very attractive, but I feel like these people know that it's flashy and they know it's attractive and they know that this is getting people's attention, and maybe that's good from like a business perspective, you know. And it's like there was just something about it that was just kind of like just rubbed me the wrong way. And it was really cool to start to see people coming out in the scientific community and saying like, hey, this is a genetically modified gray wolf, this is not an actual dire wolf. And I really appreciate that, because it's just like, you know, especially since like, I'm sorry, now I'm going on a tangent, but like I like the idea of bringing back extinct species very much concerns me, because and it's not just like the Jurassic Park stuff. It's kind of like we don't know what their impact on the ecosystem is going to be, one, and two, are these going to be pathogens, you know, for a new virus or a new disease? Like if you successfully bring back an actual woolly mammoth, or an actual like mastodon or ground sloth or whatever, right? If you actually bring that animal back, are you bringing back a vehicle for new diseases? Like you know, because everything like in this globally interconnected world, you know, especially with a virus that jumps animals, you know, like COVID did, right? You know, are you creating a weird new petri dish for a new virus that, like, you know, we don't have immunity against because this animal's been extinct for millions of years? Like, that is what scares me about genetic resurrection. Like, it sounds really cool, it sounds super flashy, but if you're actually able to do it, you know, it scares me from an ecological perspective, because it's like, what impact are those animals going to have? I cannot believe we're actually living in Jurassic Park right now. It's like, it's literally, thank you, Howard. I am proud to take Dr. Malcolm's position, and actually all the doctors' positions, because it's like, what are the impacts? Like, what's going to happen? Like, what if that animal gets out of control, you know, and like, how is it going to affect the surrounding environment? And the big one is the disease. Like, that's the biggest one, because we've had so many examples of animals that are introduced into new areas and outcompete, you know, existing species. I've been reading about, this sounds so silly, but like goldfish, you know, or carp. You know, carp are from Asia, but they're everywhere here in North America. They are really pretty fish, but they outcompete local species for food. You know, there's a lot of examples of that, like of animals being introduced in different places, you know, so... yeah, so having said, I've seen the pictures of wolves from the far north, which were terrifying and enormous. So interesting. Let's see. Maybe I'm more afraid of bees, ants, and bacteria, animals which come at you in large numbers, plus being tenacious, which wolves could be too, but at least you see them coming. Yeah. Wolves are so interesting as an animal, because, like, I can't think of a... I guess big cats do this too. Like it's kind of amazing to think about an animal that does coordinated attacks and has a history of hunting humans. You know, like wolves and humans have not been friends. I mean, like, I know they eventually became friends, and this is why we had dogs. But an actual wolf, like an actual wild wolf, is a scary prospect. Imagine if you're hiking alone in Alaska or somewhere, and a pack of wolves is hunting you. Yeah, very scary prospect. So, kind of makes me think of dusky sharks have been known to hunt whales collectively as a group. And that's terrifying to think of, like, sharks working together to bring down a whale. But dusky sharks, which are about 12 to 14 feet, let me convert that to meters. Let's see. I'm finally going backwards. Feet to meters. Let's see. So this is on the upper end of dusky sharks, but they're about 4 meters maximum length, and that might be a little bit too generous. So let's do 3.6 meters. So 12 feet, 3.6 meters. They're pretty large animals. So, but it's kind of cool to think about dusky sharks as like the wolves of the sea. So, doing coordinated attacks. But anyway, animals that do coordinated attacks: wolves, velociraptors, dusky sharks. Terrifying as far as this divide and conquer prospect. So I'm kind of rambling now. I think I'm getting into like the jittery part of the coffee. But long story short, I will say the Gangeticus shark it's concerning that this species is critically endangered, and it's extremely concerning that this might be the true name of the Borneo River Shark. Now, cross-referencing sharks of the world, right? And this is actually really interesting to see this. So, Glyphis fowlerae was named in 2010, but the reassignment to Glyphis gangeticus happened in 2015. So it's like this river shark was named in 2010, and then it got reassigned to a different species in 2015. So in the span of 5 years. This copy of Sharks of the World, the Pocket Guide, was released in 2015. And it lists, let me bring up all the river sharks that it has. It lists a bunch of them, and that's actually really concerning. So we've got the Borneo River Shark, Glyphis fowlerae, the Gangeticus shark, Glyphis gangeticus, the New Guinea River Shark, Glyphis garicki, Speartooth Shark, Glyphis, the Irrawaddy River Shark, Glyphis siamensis, and I think that's it. So it used to be 5 species, now it's 3. If you permit me, I'm gonna get my larger copy, which was released in 2022, just to cross-reference that. But I'm just gonna grab it from over there, so I'm gonna hop away for a second. I'm gonna put on a river shark. So this is Glyphis. So this is not what Glyphis fowlerae is. But since it's 10:30, please let me know in the comments if there's a shark that you like to cover next week. So any species suggestions are welcome. We've covered a lot already. This is stream 113. But if there's any new sharks that you'd like to cover, please leave any suggestions in the chat. And I'm going to grab my Sharks of the World book really quick. So 1 second. Okay, actually, that was pretty quick. So I'm just going to cross-reference in Sharks of the World. This is the brand new one. How many Glyphis sharks there are now? Just to see if they've made these changes already. Got the Spherna. So the hammerheads. Got sharp-nosed sharks. Got the blue shark. Dagger-nosed shark. Okay, there we go. River sharks. Oh my gosh, okay. Okay, so the Indo-West Pacific river sharks are rare, poorly known, and difficult to identify. Specimens and go photographs of whole animals, measurements, jaws, and teeth, and ideally, vertebral counts are essential for confirmation. Only 3 species in the genus are valid. Previously, 5 species have been named, but 2 have been synonymized with Glyphis gangeticus based on new molecular and morphological data. So this is brand new. Unidentified glyphis sharks are also reported from rivers in Malaysian Borneo and central Kalimantan. These may be another species or hitherto unknown populations of Glyphis gangeticus. Okay, so confirmed that the Borneo River Shark is actually Glyphis gangeticus, which is kind of wild and really sad, actually, because this is the one that is, the Gange shark, this is the one that is critically endangered. So this kind of took an unexpected turn, seeing that the Borneo River Shark is actually not its own species, but a Gange shark. And with that, this is a species that needs a lot of conservation help. So let's see if we could find out any more information. Let's see. Speartooth shark for next week. Let's see, because I know we have done one river shark before, but I would love to cover another one and spend more time with this group. And what we could do is cover, if the speartooth is not available, I think we can cover the other one, just to spend more time with this really unique group of sharks. So here we go. I'm checking my Carcharodontiform playlist. Okay, we did do the. Okay, cool. So Speartooth, we did do this. This was stream number 25. So Speartooth shark. Man, that's wild to think that is a year ago. So anyway, but let's check out. I'm going to check out the other ones, because what we might do, if everybody's cool with it, I think we might do the other one. Let's see. Dusky shark, smooth hammerhead, hooktooth shark, pepper cat shark. Okay, so tonight I'm gonna rename this stream Gange shark, because this apparently the Borneo River Shark is a Gange shark, which no idea. So we'll rename this for tonight, but for next week, what we could do is the New Guinea River Shark, which is Glyphis garicki. So this is still a valid species, if this sounds good to everybody. But let's see. New. Okay, so New Guinea River Shark. Wow. Okay, New Guinea River Shark. G-O-Y. Okay, so yeah, let me know if you guys like that suggestion, or feel free to put another suggestion in the chat, and we'll keep going with the Gange. Okay, cool. Bibi is down for this. New Guinea River Shark, Glyphis garicki. That could be our species for next week. So, all right. So let's check out. I'm gonna kind of. Here we go. This study might be kind of interesting. So here we go. DNA capture. Can I collapse this thing? That's annoying. Okay, I'm just gonna do it like this. Hold on, I'm just adjusting my view. I cannot wait to update this. Okay, Howard, this is awesome. Sounds good to me. Perfect. So, yeah. Sorry. I forgot about this publication, so I'm just gonna say this once. When I was an immature teenager / college student, I always would pronounce this publisher PNAS, and that's the only time I will say that. But anyway, DNA capture reveals This is a reputable place, by the way. This. I'm not sure what it stands for, but I know they do a lot of good shark work. So anyway. DNA capture reveals transoceanic gene flow in endangered river sharks. So, for over 100 years, the river sharks of the genus Glyphis were only known from the type specimens of species that had been collected in the 19th century. They were widely considered extinct until populations of Glyphis-like sharks were rediscovered in remote regions of Borneo and northern Australia at the end of the 20th century. However, the genetic affinities between the newly discovered Glyphis-like populations and the poorly preserved original museum-type specimens have never been established. Here we present the first, to our knowledge, fully resolved, complete phylogeny of Glyphis that includes both archival-type specimens and modern material. We use a sensitive DNA hybridization capture method to obtain complete mitochondrial genomes from all of our samples and show that 3 of the 5 described river shark species are probably conspecific and widely distributed in Southeast Asia. So this might be the paper that actually kind of put its foot down and said, hey, Glyphis fowlerae is actually Glyphis gangeticus, so this is actually still a gange shark. So, furthermore, we show that there have been recent gene flow between locations that are separated by large oceanic expanses. Our data strongly suggests marine dispersal in these species, overturning the widely held notion that river sharks are restricted to fresh water. Now that's actually really cool because at the top of the stream, like I was correct, but I did hesitate a little bit because I've always, like, I was correct that they are able to go into salt water, but I did hesitate a little bit because I've always like was educated on that assumption that bull sharks are really the ones that go into our oceanic sharks that go into fresh water, and the Glyphis sharks are kind of more confined to fresh water. But it's really interesting to see that that might not be the case, and that the Glyphis sharks are actually a lot more similar to bull sharks than we originally thought, and they can actually be found in salt water. So that's actually really cool. It seems that the species in the genus Glyphis are Euryhaline. Thank you, Vivia. It seems that the species in the genus Glyphis are Euryhaline with an ecology similar to the bull shark, in which adult individuals live in the ocean while the young grow up in river habitats with reduced predation pressure. So again, it's the same thing. It's really cool that little sharks are intentionally pupped. Not every species, of course, but quite a few coastal shark species will use rivers or estuaries as a safe nursery for their pups, so that they avoid, for the explicit purpose of avoiding predators and creating a habitat or an environment where they can, eat as much as they want without, being eaten themselves and without actually competing with predators for prey items. So it's a really great survival strategy. So finally, we discovered a previously unidentified species within the genus Glyphis. It's so funny. They can't give away their hats though. Finally, we discovered a previously identified species within the genus Glyphis that is deeply divergent from all other lineages, underscoring the current lack of knowledge about the biodiversity and ecology of these mysterious sharks. So Euryhaline, good question, Bibia. So Euryhaline means able to handle any kind of salinity. Euryhaline means I can do any sort of salinity. I can go in freshwater, I can go in brackish water, I can go in seawater, I could even maybe go into hypersaline water. So Euryhaline is I think you could describe herring as Euryhaline. Salmon, I think you could describe as Euryhaline as well. Bull sharks and river sharks are Euryhaline. It just means they can handle anything, which is really rare. When you think of any kind of marine animal, I would say the proportion of Euryhaline animals compared to strictly freshwater or strictly saltwater animals, it's very small. So it's a really cool select group of animals that are able to do it. One thing about bull sharks specifically that is wild is that bull sharks have been found in hypersaline lagoons. So their maximum, remember the scale that I did where it was 0 parts per thousand to 35, 0 is freshwater, 35 is saltwater. Bull sharks have been clocked at 50. So they can handle an enormous tolerance. So they can go from 0 parts per thousand to 50 parts per thousand, which is unheard of. There's a few other fishes that can do that, but it's extremely rare. So it's really cool. Euryhaline sharks are some of the coolest as far as just the amount of pressure they can put themselves into. It's physiologically they're very, very impressive animals. So let's see. Just to be mindful of time, we'll kind of for herring and salmon, it's only when they spawn, right? Bull shark can handle it all the time. That's a great point, actually. So, yes, So I would say yes. My little asterisk is that actually, yes, because in tropical parts of the world they can do that all the time. In temperate parts of the world, they're only here in the warm season. So, but yes, actually, I'm kind of overthinking it. So yeah, that's actually a really cool way of putting it. Where bull sharks enter these habitats to exploit food, really. So it's super interesting. So. Significance. The river sharks of the genus Glyphis, widely feared as man-eaters throughout India, remain very poorly known to science. This group constitutes 5 described species, all of which are considered highly endangered and restricted to freshwater systems in Australasia and Southeast Asia. DNA sequence data derived from 19th century dried museum material augmented with contemporary samples indicates that only 3 of the 5 currently described species are valid, that there is a genetically distinct but as yet undescribed species recorded in Bangladesh and Sarawak in Malaysia and Borneo, and that these iconic and mysterious sharks are not restricted to freshwater at all, but rather appear to be adapted to both marine and freshwater habitats. So this is an extremely cool study. This is by Chen Hong Lee, Shannon Corrigan, Li Yang, Nicholas Straub. He seems familiar actually. Mark Harris, Michael Horfighter, William T. White, and Gavin J.P. Naylor, also very familiar. So these are actually some big names here. It's really cool. It's amazing that study confirms that there used to be 5 river sharks. Now they were reduced to 3, and then there's a new 4th species. So it's kind of wild to see, like, as far as this shark classification, how chaotic this was. And it makes sense because as we learn more about them, we kind of understand the relationships more. And shark classification is always chaotic. Like there's always like additions, but I've never seen like an addition, subtraction, and re-addition. It's really interesting. So 5 river sharks down to 3 today, but there's a mysterious 4th one that's yet to be like formally described. So it's really, really fascinating to see how Glyphis the genus has changed. So. We'll see if we can get some pictures. This is interesting. So, this is some phylogenetic modeling. So, kind of showing, it's kind of color coding how these different samples compare to each other. So, black is Glyphis glyphis. Yellow is next week's shark, Glyphis garicki. So these are pretty harmonious trees, right? This mix of colors is Glyphis gangeticus is red, Glyphis species is green, Glyphis siamensis is blue, and then Glyphis fowlerae is white. So tonight we were talking about the Borneo River Shark, which was originally described as Glyphis fowlerae, but you can see on this tree that Glyphis fowlerae is pretty mixed in with Glyphis gangeticus and Glyphis siamensis. So these are all actually maybe the same group. They're much more closely related to each other than they are to the other chunks of Glyphis samples. So this is part of the justification for why they're lumping them all in together in this one species, which is Glyphis gangeticus. So it's pretty interesting. This paper is really cool. So I'm actually going to put it in the chat because I know it's almost 11 over here. But for future reading, it is really interesting. And I'm going to see if we can get some images. Oh, I guess we can't. I'm going to see if we have any summary. And it looks like it went kind of backwards, where it looks like the materials and methods are at the end. Let's see notes that they have on Glyphis fowlerae specifically. So I'm going to do a search. I have a lot, actually. Okay, so I'm just going to read the notes on the Borneo River Shark, how they kind of determined it was Glyphis. It was a gangetic shark all along, and then I think we're after that. So let's see the researchers have collected several juvenile Glyphis sharks camping by the lower reaches of the Kinabakan River in northeastern Malaysia and Borneo. The Kinabakan River Shark was described as a new species, Glyphis fowlerae. Discovery fueled optimism that other undiscovered populations of glyphis might exist in remote regions of the world, prompted a series of expeditions from the late 1990s to 2010 that resulted in the collection of river shark specimens from northern Australia and Borneo. These include additional specimens from the Kinabalu River, 2 specimens of uncertain affinity from Muka and Sarawak, and a 2-meter specimen from Sampit in the southernmost part of Kalimantan, Indonesian Borneo, and specimens from the Alligator, Adelaide, and Wenlock rivers in northern Australia. Let's see. Initial analysis of DNA sequences derived from several... Oh, okay. I think this is just kind of like backstory. Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. I just saw the comments on the audio. I think it's a bandwidth thing. I've tried to fix it, over the years, and I think it's unfortunately like a bandwidth thing. So, let's see. I think this is just basically kind of diving into essentially what we already know, which is after genetic testing, they found that the Borneo River Shark is in fact a Gangeticus shark. So I'm going to see if there's any photos of the specimen, of the species, and then I think we'll wrap it up for tonight. More genetic studies. This is for next week. This is going to be Glyphis garicki. There we go. Okay. So I think this was where we'll wrap up. So this is outdated now because this is a Gangeticus shark, but we've got Glyphis fowlerae. So this was a sample in a identification guide. The English names were the Borneo River Shark and the Kinabatangan River Shark. Let's see. Endemic to the Kinabatangan River in Sabah, Malaysia. And again, this is reclassified as a Gangeticus shark. Here's another Glyphis, the Muka River Shark, which this could be the other. And again, it looks so similar. Like again, look at like the broad fins, the kind of widened dorsal fin, the flattened head. So. Oh, a good question. So, Bibi, the phylogenetic tree had numbers mostly 10 to 90 at each node. What do they mean? So, that's a great question. Let's see. I think they are... I don't think this is the right term, and I think geneticists will get mad at me, but I think you can look at them like probabilities. So, like 100% being like, yep, this is what we think is most likely related to this, and then 91 is like high confidence, 80 is like good confidence. But let's see if I'm right about that. So it's been a while since I've done kind of like modeling like this, but let's see. Maximum likelihood tree based on partition analysis of the protein coding portion of the mitochondrial genome. Type specimens are indicated by an asterisk. Colors in figure 1. Bootstrap support values are indicated on the branches. So let me confirm what that means specifically. Where's my phone? Oh, there it is. What is... That's a great question. Because I think it is like confidence interval, but or like not confidence interval, but I think you can look at it like we are like 100% confident. So yes, okay. So a bootstrap support value on a phylogenetic tree represents the percentage of times a particular branch or node appears in a set of resampled trees, indicating how strongly the data supports a specific grouping. Essentially means a measure of confidence in the tree topology. Okay, so that's exactly what it is. So, like 100%, we know that all the glyphis are different from all the Lamiopsis. So there we go. 100%, we know that all these glyphis species from Borneo, the pink ones, are related to each other. 99%, we know that all these other glyphis are kind of related to each other. 100%, we know that Glyphis and Glyphis garicki are, kind of more closely related to each other than they are to the other ones. And then that and so on and so forth. So that makes sense. And it's kind of cool when you look at. I know it's almost the end of the stream, but it's kind of cool when you look at the Glyphis fowlerae samples. This is pretty interesting. All the white ones. 100%, we know that these Glyphis fowlerae samples are all closely related to each other. 91% were very sure-ish that Glyphis siamensis is actually really closely related to Glyphis gangeticus. So it's kind of cool to see that, like, okay, so this weird Glyphis siamensis, Glyphis gangeticus complex is its own thing, and it's closely related to Glyphis fowlerae, and it's probably so closely related that it's probably all the same species. And we know they're distinct from Glyphis in black, Glyphis garicki in yellow, and then this new Glyphis in pink. But we're pretty certain that this mix of colors right here is the same species. So yeah, that was a long way of saying that it's like a probability, a confidence probability, if you will. So, but really cool, and it is interesting to see that even if this is one species, Glyphis fowlerae still seems to be like this old Borneo River Shark name still seems to be kind of, like separate from these other samples of Glyphis gangeticus and Glyphis siamensis. So I don't know, pretty interesting stuff with these sharks. So, and then at least we got one more photo before we wrap up tonight. So this is Glyphis. It's not Glyphis gangeticus, unfortunately, but it is a close cousin, and another great view of kind of what these sharks look like. They're very impressive specimens. I actually really like that anecdote about in India these sharks kind of being feared as man-eaters, and they do get to be a pretty big size, but their teeth, at least with a spear-toothed shark, they do look like fishing teeth, like teeth that are for slippery fish, not so much larger prey items. So I'm wondering if there's confusion between this shark and bull sharks, because they do live in the same area. So the Glyphis gangeticus siamensis is either one or two, maybe three different species. Interesting. Yeah, it's really fascinating, and it's kind of maddening. I'm sure, like for shark taxonomists, like it's probably the dynamism of the field is probably really infuriating, but it's also really exciting. It's super cool to be surprised and see all these changes. And I was definitely surprised tonight, because this book, which is not that old, was saying that Glyphis fowlerae was its own species, and now it's reverted to Glyphis gangeticus. So it's kind of cool. It's interesting to see a reversion. That's a very uncommon thing in shark taxonomy. So, but I think since it's 11, we'll go ahead and wrap up for tonight. But guys, thank you so much for watching. This was a really especially fun stream. A lot of great conversations in chat. And again, welcome to our new members. This is really cool to have you guys here. And to continue our conversation on sharks. We still have a lot to go. There's about 540 sharks of the world as of April, 14th, 2025. So, and we're only on stream 113, so a lot more sharks to cover. But tune in next week for our new Glyphis species. We're going to keep on learning about river sharks. The New Guinea River Shark is next, so stay tuned, and I'm really excited to meet that species with you guys. So, but thank you again so much for watching. I hope you all have a great rest of your week, and tune in next week for the New Guinea River Shark. Cheers, and have a good night, guys. Bye.